We're picking up with part 2 of the syllabus on page 4, talking about required materials. The first thing that's there is a reading journal. You can keep this online since our class is taught online, or if you choose, you may keep it in a spiral notebook or a notebook that's bound with some other sort of binding. That's up to you. If it is in a actual paper and pencil, pen journal, make sure that you get that to me one way or another by the deadline. Let me know if you are not doing it online so that we can make arrangements for that. Following 7 books are the ones that we're going to be using in class. Most of them are what we call trade books. That's not a textbook. The closest we have to a textbook for this class would be Best Books for Kindergarten through High School, since it has some bibliographic information there, and that will help you with your book list, and also some of the material that we depend on for content in the class is in that book as well. But the rest are they're called trade books because they're just for mass publication, for generally anyone, but these are mainly geared toward adolescents. And then also you are required to find 3 additional books, 2 that you'll be doing book talks on. One would be a Christian biography or autobiography, and the other one is a Newbery book that you have not read. And then the 3rd book is a Newbery book that you have read already. And then you're going to make a journal entry on that, write what you remember, read the pages required from Best Books, and then write another journal entry. On pages 5 and 6 we have the schedule, and if you would like to maybe print that off, that'd be handy, or at least keep that in mind. And I'll do my best to remind you of what's due and when. Okay, some specific guidelines for some of the assignments that we have. A reading journal. You're going to be keeping that either online or in a book. I would like you to have a table of contents. That's for your own sake. It's a whole lot easier to find books that you have read when there's a way to have an index or table of contents to help you search for them. Note the guidelines that are here. For each book that you read, you're going to have the title, the author, the copyright date, number of pages, any information that you think will be helpful in the future. Keep in mind that maybe years from now you won't remember if you've read the book or what it's about. You can go back here and it'll be very helpful to refresh your memory. A lot of times I'll read a book and I can't remember, would I use this in class or wouldn't I? And I'll look at my notes and it'll say why I would not use it in class or what I do like about the book. Not only are you going to have entries on the books that you read, but you're going to be having one entry where you have a list of journal topics, questions, guidelines. You will have kids read and journal on what they're writing or what they're reading, and it's helpful to have some of these topics, and I'll give you some later on, but just be thinking about that, maybe some things that you've had in your past that you've used as jumpstart things to have them write on. Another entry is a reading rationale. One of the things that you're going to hear over and over again is, why do we have to read? I hate to read. Reading is boring. And it's always nice to have a list of reasons why it's good to read. There's a book called How to Read Slowly, which even the title puts some people off, but what he's talking about is how to read thoughtfully and discerningly. Another one is Ruth Haycock's Encyclopedia of Bible Truths. That's up in the reference section of the IMC. It's a red book. I think there are some that can be checked out of Faith's regular library. It's been republished now, and the different subjects have been broken up. Instead of being in one book, there are several books, but that is a really good resource that I would recommend. After you have done reading all the books, near the end of the class, I will remind you that to keep in mind, what do you think about journal writing? Is this something you've done before, or you might keep up? Some advantages or disadvantages of keeping a journal, a reading journal. Here's the rubric for your journal, and note that everything needs to be there in order to get the full points. The book list. I've got several pages about the book list. This is due at the end of class, but I want you to be working on it ahead of time. The first thing I want you to do is have a rationale, an explanation. What are your objectives? What audience do you have in mind? And this is not going to be very lengthy. If I were to have a book list that I made for adolescent lit, my readership would be my students who want to be teachers. And I might have a section of trade books. I might have a section of books that they could use for teaching, maybe like a rhyming dictionary, maybe something like the Haycock's Encyclopedia of Bible Truths. So that would be an explanation of how my book list is compiled. Also think about the way that you organize it. Are you going to organize them by title, by author, by genre, or what are you going to use? What types of books are you hoping to include? A list of sources has to be at the end as well, and I want you to have a minimum of 5. One of them, I would think and hope, would be just brainstorming. Sit down, take some time to think, what are your favorite books from whatever your target age group is. You can ask your friends and family, what books do you remember from this time? The reason we have The Giver is because my niece and nephew said, oh, you've got to teach that book. So take a survey of friends and family. During the class, you're going to have to take a field trip to either a library or a bookstore. And so that would be another source. And then there are bibliographies. I've got some that are on reserve in the library. Just go ahead and ask for them if you go to the Faith Library. There is, Best Books is an example of a bibliography. And they have many books that they recommend. And they are organized, first of all, by groups of ages, and then they have them alphabetized by the author's last name. I would think that you should not have any trouble getting 5 sources, and if you do, please let me know and I'll help you. The list. This should be as ready as possible to hand out to a class. I want not only a heading like it's your book list, like mine says Mrs. Wooster's list of recommended books, but I also want some codes there so that you can let the kids know maybe what type of book it is. Sometimes people will tell, is it under 100 pages or over 300 or something like that. You can have some codes that you come up with, some abbreviations to help them as they look for books. I always used to go through the school library where I taught in both Emmanuel and Toledo and in Grandview Park, and I would see what books they had, and when I made my book list, I had those listed with an asterisk so that they knew that they were in our school library. Obviously, you can't do that right now because you probably don't know where you're teaching, but if you do know, that's a good thing to do. But a lot of things that you can use to help kids as they look at a list and narrow down their choices. Neatness and spelling will be critical, although other elements should not be neglected. Please italicize book titles. So decide what level the list will target. compile your list, decide what form you will use. Some students are able to use Excel. I don't understand that, so I use a table so that I can resort and sort my entries. Remember to apply guidelines for appropriate reading. Be disciplined as you complete this project. And then quality is better than quantity. And I say 100 is the Goldilocks number. Goldilocks, more than 100 is too many and less than 100 is too few. And if you're close to it, that's fine. But 25 is way too few. 300 is way too many. Here's a sample book list. All right, ignore what's not in the box. If I were to just have the box, and I see that we've got my little table lines that show up here, but pretend they're not there. Actually, if you look at your syllabus or print that out, they shouldn't be there. But anyway, my codes, less than 125, between 125, 299, more than 300. A series. I usually like to have students read them in order. It's very frustrating to me to read a series book and all of a sudden realize I'm in the middle of a series and haven't read the first one. SM, see me. Some books are okay for some students to read, but not others. Some of them are okay to read, but you want to point out some things to them. Not that, they would harm them, but you just want to point out maybe these people, it's a great story, but there is no acknowledgement of God in this whole story. So there are some examples of codes that you might use. Make up your own. And there you go. Here's the book list grading rubric. Note that neatness, capitalization, spelling, and italicizing will be critical. Book talk guidelines. You're going to be doing 2 of these, one on the biography or autobiography and the other one on the Newbery book that you're going to read for the first time here. You'll give us this information. If you print this and write this information out, that will be very helpful to you as you present. Some guidelines down here at the bottom. Interest level, we're talking about what group might be interested in this book. Would you put it on a book list? Is it okay for everyone to read? Or, because a book list will ask, kids will take it away from school with them. I still have book lists from when I was in school. Would you use it with a whole class or small groups? Or would you use it as a read aloud? A read aloud, you have more control. You can edit, censor certain things, and you want to do that if you're going to be reading aloud. But if they're reading it in a class or small group, or if it's on a book list, you have to be more careful. Rating, how would you rate this book and why? Again, using the 1 star is low, 5 stars high method. And here's the book talk rubric. Your 8-page book rubric. What's to be on each page is there. The PowerPoint. Again, what's on each, or what the components are supposed to be. 5 pages, including all of these things. Okay, I'm going to stop here. The next section will be resources for adolescent literature.